Hello, I'm Jamie O'Brien, editor of the Record for the Archdiocese of Perth. Today we're speaking with Bishop Makysim Ryabukha from the Exarchate of Donetsk in Ukraine, a region currently under Russian occupation. Since being installed as auxiliary bishop in December 2022, some 10 months into Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Bishop Maksym has driven more than 250,000 kilometres near the largely occupied areas of eastern Ukraine to tend to his flock, and he feels right at home. Bishop Maksym, thank you for being with us today. You're from the Exarchate of Donetsk. Tell me about who you are and your life there.
I think the best thing that I can say is that I am the shepherd of my flock. I am a Salesian and I am from Lviv, and that is where initially I was looking after my congregations. I observed how the Salesians work with children, with young people, and how a very good example was set. Immediately after I finished my schooling, I dedicated my life then in the monastery. And after my return from Italy, I started serving Lviv. And after that, my superiors sent me to serve the town of Dnipro in the eastern part of Ukraine. And then I spent 10 years with the Salesians in Kiev. Then I saw that the church was calling me to become the auxiliary bishop. And then I asked God the question, well, what do you want from me? What should I do? And initially, I found that it was a very good thing to be able to get to know the people, to visit the people, visit the military, everyone who was in the region. In the first times, I felt that I was a good Nicholas, and I could see how the church really kept the faith alive and how this worked very positively in the hearts of the people. Because where you have a church, you have God.
So, Bishop, can you share the experience of the people to whom you've been ministering?
In a time of war, this presents challenges for the people. People are looking for answers that are very, very painful. To be a bishop during the time of war is particularly difficult because you have to listen to the problems and find a solution with the people. So people want to hear God's voice, but they also want to lift their voice to God.
You've received lots of help during this time. Can you tell me about that?
First and foremost, he would like to say a huge thank you to Australia. During the time of occupation, there are huge problems such as hunger. Often there is just not enough to eat. And in particular, during the cold winter season, the Russians simply take away everything that people have. It's removed. When he was in Kiev, he also visited certain areas that had been freed from the Russian occupation and invasion. And he was able to see how the people were also very appreciative, knowing what the world was doing for them, standing behind them, with much of the humanitarian help, be it food, clothing, medication. The large portion of this was coming from Australia. Today, with the passing of time, we realize that a certain war fatigue is setting in the countries beyond Ukraine. Unfortunately, every single day there is so much destruction that is happening. And there are people who come that have absolutely nothing and ask for help. The Russians continue to bombard and destroy places where people live. And this means that yesterday people may have had everything that they needed for their day-to-day life, and today they have nothing. I remember a very touching story, and this is in Kiev. There are many people that came to the Salesians. In particular, I think of one family, and one of those children was still being breastfed. But there was no milk in the shops. And they were trying to work out a way how to get onto an evacuation train, but it was awfully complicated. And when they've managed to get onto one of those trains, they immediately started looking for milk. And the mother was saying that the joy of the children of finding milk must have been one of the most joyous things that humanity had ever experienced. It is a very, very complex situation today, and we cannot actually see a solution to this problem and to find peace. It is a positive thing that the world, however, does see that compassion and assistance is very, very important for the people.
Tell me more about your witnessing miracles during your time as bishop and in your ministering to the people.
There is two particular incidences. One priest served in Melitopol, in the occupied territory. The authorities were trying to convince him to accept a Russian passport. And this would have meant that he recognized the occupation as being the legitimate forces in Ukraine. And he realized he couldn't do this, so everyone was advising him just leave Melitopol. He was in tears and he was saying, I cannot leave because I am a priest and I'm here to serve the people. They need me. Who will bring them the holy sacraments and give them support? But one day, the occupation resolved this during a mass. The occupiers came into the church, created disturbance, and took him away. People were in quite a state, not knowing what's happened and what's happened to him. Because as a rule, if somebody is taken away like that, you don't see them again. They're put into chambers, tortured, away from everyone, and you never hear from them again. So they put him into a car, took away all of his documents, and took him to the front line, old border territory. And he said, well, where am I to go? Everything is mined in front of me. They said, you'd have to keep on going forward, because if you turn back, we will shoot you. Very consciously, he realized he would be going forward. He had a great love for the Mother of God, and he prayed, if you still need me, please lead me through this. Then I promise you that I will always teach people how to pray to you. He proceeded to walk, but suddenly he heard a voice, an elderly man that was calling him and saying, stop. He asked him, where are you going? And asked the priest to come to his home. The old man offered the priest something to eat, but he declined, knowing there's always a chance this could be poison. Then he took out a bottle of water, but this was Ukrainian, because you could read this on the label. He was extremely surprised because such bottles of water would not normally be possible in an occupied area. And he asked, where did you get this water from? Well, some time ago, there were some Ukrainian soldiers who came to me, brought me food, and left this water. The old man then said to the priest, this is the way to go. If you take this road, you will find your way to safety. So he continued and prayed along the way, and the first soldier he met had been under his tutelage in his parish. This was an absolute miracle in its own right, because anyone that approaches you could very well be somebody in disguise. This soldier then took him to Zaporizhzhia, where the priest was then able to serve. After 9 months, the bishop called this priest and said, I have a very important mission. You will visit all of the parishes with Our Lady of Fatima. Once during one of the masses, I and this particular priest met. And he then said, the Mother of God not only saved my life, but she did give me the possibility of teaching so many people how to pray to her. There's also another very interesting episode. His ordination took place very close to the Christmas period. And he wanted to have someone with him to travel around to visit the people. There was a group of students who wanted to travel around and visit the soldiers. Our Ukrainian Christmas traditions are rich in tradition and very beautiful. And there was one particular place that we went to, and there were so many soldiers in the building, there was no room that you could squeeze into. It was decided to cover the premises so that they would not be picked up or detected by drones, and the temperature was extremely cold. And he was thinking and praying what he could say to these soldiers that would be worthwhile. That was his only thought. And then after the Mass and the Nativity play, they got into the car and to continue their travels. And it was minus 24 degrees. And then one of the priests was saying it was so cold in the church that he had to hold the cup with the sacraments, otherwise that would have frozen as well. And surprisingly, no water actually froze, and even when cleaning the chalice, even that water was not frozen. And that was a sign in itself that God is definitely with them. He also didn't freeze and was able to continue on his way. And that particular moment has given him a feeling of peace and that God is truly with him for the whole way.
What would you like to say to the people of Perth about the war in Ukraine and its impact?
First and foremost, why is it that a war like this starts? When people do not respect the sanctity of life, what life is about, then they lose the sense of living, the purpose of living. And the world then loses sight of the sanctity of human life. Today, to kill a person has just become an everyday event in the context of war. And I think of those Russian pilots who load their planes with bombs, dispense those bombs, return, and then go and have dinner with their friends in the evening. How can your conscience not be troubled by the fact that you are destroying so many people's lives? This is a risk that can affect every one of us. And this is why it is so important to keep in mind and never ever forget the sanctity of human life that has been given by God for us, and to respect this sanctity. Where you do not have goodness, evil takes that place. I think of Australia, where so many people have received support and understanding. This is a city of great hope. It is so important to continue respecting the sanctity of life and understanding that God has given us, and therefore look to the future. The coat of arms, the flag of Australia, shows that they are looking towards the future. And I would like to express very sincere thanks that this hope is very much alive and that you are sharing this with Ukraine. Someone asked me, which is the most powerful weapon that Ukraine has? There is nothing worse when you feel that you have been left behind. That is a very destructive force for the soul. And the most wonderful thing is that in Australia, Ukraine knows they have not been forgotten.
Bishop, thank you very much for your time today.